Hi, my name's Paul. I'm a professional teacher working at an elite private school in Thailand. I work as an ESL teacher here. I've released a couple of videos on this site about how to learn English or any other second language. In those videos, I said that studying grammar is really a waste of time, and in many ways, it's actually harmful. It slows down your learning of a second language. And a lot of people have asked me, well, if you can't study grammar, then how do you study the language? That's a very good question. Let me start by saying that none of this is my opinion, that there's been about 50 years of scientific studies done in the United States on second language learning and language research that have all backed up this claim. As far as I'm aware, I don't know of any studies that say that studying grammar is helpful to learning language. So the question is, if you can't learn the language by studying grammar, then how do you learn the language? So there's a couple of answers to this. Number one, the first answer is that a lot of scientific research says that learning language is a subconscious process. That means that it's done automatically by your brain over time through exposure to a language. Another study said that you need about 4,000 hours of exposure to a language to become fluent, semi-fluent, or native. That means that simply by being around a language and listening to it and trying to understand it and trying to interact with it, you will learn the language automatically. It takes about 4,000 hours for the average person. It works better with young children. Adults still have the ability, but it takes much longer and it's more difficult. For adults, you have to actively participate more. For young children, it's an automatic process. So what does that mean? What are the practical steps you can take to learn English or any other second language? What that means is, as I've stated before, doing things like watching television programs are very helpful, but only if you're listening to the language, understanding what they're saying, and practicing, okay? This can mean practicing in your mind, okay? It can mean actively listening and focusing on the dialogue. And if you can't understand any of it, watch it with subtitles. You should watch videos that are appropriate to your ability level of language. For example, if you can't speak any English at all, you can't understand any English, watch very basic cartoons with basic words that have good representations on them. For example, many young children's cartoons will have simple words that are easy to understand, and the language will be very simple. You can start out doing that, and then as you get better, progress to more difficult parts. Now, if you're a little more advanced than that, say you're an intermediate English speaker, a great way to learn language is to read books. Reading books will help you learn grammar by being exposed to it. It's an automatic process. When you're exposed to native language, your brain begins to form these patterns and understand how the language is structured. It's very different from memorizing the patterns. Memorization takes place in a part of your brain that is very different from language learning. If you want to learn a language, there's a specific part of your brain. If you want to memorize, that's a different part of your brain. If you memorize too much, then you're actually taking away from the part of your brain that's responsible for learning. So what does that mean? That means that you should basically never try to memorize anything. You should never study things like vocabulary. A lot of schools will get hung up on this. They'll try to force you to memorize words. In the long run, this will actually dramatically slow down your language learning process. if you're going to memorize words, don't make a conscious effort to memorize them. Just be exposed to them and learn the words automatically as part of the language acquisition process. I hope this has been helpful to everybody. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I try to get back to everyone as much as possible, and thank you all for listening. Take care.